So before we get into today's video, please consider liking and subscribing. Now today I'm going to be discussing the opening series between the Kansas City Royals and the Cleveland Guardians. Now, I'm a Royals fan when it comes to baseball. Now, am I as much of a Royals fan as I am a Chiefs fan? And there's, in their respective sports, no, I'm more of a hardcore Chiefs fan. I would call myself probably more of a casual Royals fan than I am anything else. The Royals are my team. They're the team that I root for. Anytime I can watch the Royals and anytime I can go to the Royals games, I will. I went to the series finale this week between the Cleveland Guardians and the Kansas City Royals. Have a ton of fun. Every time I go to a Royals game, I always have a ton of fun. It's something that I think anybody should do. If you have a local major league team, try to go out to as many baseball games as you possibly can, because I know people harp on the fact that it's boring on TV. Personally, I don't find baseball boring at all. I think it's a very entertaining sport. I thoroughly enjoy baseball. But when it comes to baseball, my favorite team is the Royals, even though I don't root for them as hard as I do for the Kansas City Chiefs when it comes to football. But as it is, I wanted to recap the opening series between the Royals and the Cleveland Guardians. Now, I'll probably do this for every series. I'm more of a casual baseball fan, so if I miss something, please feel free to let me know. I'm not the most hardcore baseball fan, as I mentioned, but the Royals, again, are the team that I root for anytime I can go out to a game or catch a game. So I enjoy the Royals, and they're a team that if they're really good, I will invest myself into. I wouldn't call myself a bandwagon fan because they've been my local team ever since I was a kid. So they're the team that I've always rooted for. But at the same time, if the Royals aren't good, usually I spend my time doing other things. I know that sounds really bad, but trust me, when it comes to football and the Chiefs, I invest myself in the Chiefs. So you don't have to worry about me being a bandwagon Chiefs fan. But if we look at this opening series between the Royals and the Guardians, it was I think the best word to describe this series, it was different throughout the entire series. Because you look at the opening two games, it was a pitching duel. And from this perspective of the Royals, I think Brad Keller and Zach Greinke, those two put on an absolute pitching clinic. Those two did fantastic to start the season. I thought Zach Greinke and his return to the Kansas City Royals and his first game with the Royals in over a decade was an amazing game, 5 2/3 innings, and he only gave up one run. And I mean, I don't know what else you could ask from a guy that is coming back to the organization for the first time in a while. Gave up one run, had an amazing outing. And just as a side note, Zach Greinke was my first player that I would probably consider my favorite player in baseball. And so having him back on the Royals was honestly something that was very, very cool and nice to see. And then you will obviously look at game two. Brad Keller again put on a pitching clinic, 6 innings, gave up no runs. The Royals themselves didn't give up a single run. So the first couple of games of the season, the Royals pitching staff was fairly good, but we'll discuss the later two games. That was not the case. The pitching in the last two games of the series was a bit of a mess, and it needed a little bit of work. It was a complete disaster, if I'm being completely honest. But the first two games by the Royals, I would say a great way to start the season, great way to open up the opening series of the year between those two teams. Royals jumped out to a 2-0 series lead, a 2-0 record to start the year. I thought they started off hot. They started off great. Bobby WITT Jr. Bobby, welcome to the big leagues, man. Like, I know his numbers right now aren't particularly the best, but I don't think that shows the whole story. That man's a rookie. It's his first year starting, and I think Bobby definitely showed and he proved the amount of talent that he's going to bring to the big leagues in the near future. I thought he was amazing. His biggest hit of the weekend was his game-winning hit on opening day, so he made his presence known on opening day. Always a great sign to see the number one prospect, the team's top prospect, making a massive impact to start the season. Always great to see that. And then Alberto Mondesi, his walk-off win, I believe it was game 2. That was beautiful. That was wonderful to see. The Royals, they felt like a gritty team. Like, there was 3 games of series, game 1, 2, and 4. It seemed like this team is very gritty. They seem like they will always hang in. They will always be tough. And it kind of felt like that through this entire, well, except for game 3. Game 3 of the series was a complete disaster. It was a mess. But the opening 2 games, nothing really for me to complain about. The pitching was great. The bats weren't necessarily alive, but the defense was great. Bobby was making, and then you have to mention Bobby's defensive game-saving play that allowed Alberto Mondesi to hit that walk-off hit. That defensive play was spectacular. That was a play everybody was talking about. And I don't think there's a single person that wasn't in awe with that play. Like, a rookie, a guy that's his first year starting, making that kind of play was awesome. Like, his baseball IQ on that play was incredible. The fact that he even had the goal to go home on that play was awesome. I honestly didn't see that game live, but I saw the highlights of that game. I saw that. I was in awe, and I was like, hell yeah, we get Bobby Witt Jr. He's one hell of a player, and he proved that throughout this entire series that, you know, his numbers may not have been there. He has a lot of time to grow, a lot of time to improve, but I think Bobby throughout this entire series definitely showed himself fairly well and was really good throughout this entire series. But then we get to games 3 and 4, and the series kind of took a different turn. You look at game 3 in particular. That game was a complete disaster. Chris Bubich couldn't even get out of the first inning of that game. He gave up 5 runs in the first inning. The Royals gave up 10 runs in the first 2 innings of that game. They gave up a grand slam, and that was one of those games where, as like, you know, a pretty casual Royals fan, I would say, where I just really kind of zoned out the game the rest of the day, because that was the first game I got to see all season. And the Royals, they kind of struggled. I mean, the bats, you know, they put up 3 runs offensively, which, I mean, obviously that day wasn't enough. 3 runs a couple days ago would have been plenty, but the pitching in that game was a mess. It was a struggle. I mean, they were going with Brady Singer throughout that game, towards the end of that game, and I was like, I thought Brady Singer was one of our starters, man, and I thought Brady Singer was supposed to be a guy that was supposed to come into this season and get a little bit more improvement throughout the year, and to see him having to come in like that, I was like, oh no, you know, that game was not fun to watch. That game was a disaster. Like, I was trying to be optimistic. It was 10-0, and I was tweeting out chip away, because I think the Royals got it down to a 10-2 game. And the pitching in that game, they gave up 17 runs. They gave up 27 runs in 2 days. Like, that's a disaster. That's not a recipe for winning at all. Like, I don't care. Like, I thought the offense in the last 2 games of the series, you know, I thought especially the last game of the series, and then we look at the last game of the series offensively, I thought they played great. I thought that showed the true grit of this team, because the Royals, they got down, I believe, 4-1 in this most recent game, the final game on a Monday, the final game of the series, and they were able to slowly chip away and get the lead back, and they were able to lead that game. And I thought they just did a great job on everything. They were playing great small ball, which I find to be the most entertaining part of baseball. I'm not huge into the home runs, the home run power, all that thing, but the Royals playing a lot of small ball. They were stealing bases. Mondesi, Whit Merrifield was getting in on the action. Bobby Witt got his first stolen base. Like, those guys were moving around the bases. They were able to get that lead after, you know, struggling, you know, to start the game. This is the game I attended, and it was a great game. It was a fun game to attend, because the Royals, they were chipping away. They were making small plays. They weren't trying to get everything all at once. You know, just one play at a time, one pitch at a time. They were doing great getting back into the game, and it was a ton of fun. You know, the Royals chipped away. They got the lead at one point, and then the pitching staff kind of let them down. Stalma and Barlow, those 2 guys, unfortunately, they weren't able to, you know, help the team out, keep them in a reasonable position, because going into the 8th inning, the Royals, they were in a reasonable position to win that game, but then unfortunately they weren't able to, because I believe it was 9-5 after the 8th inning, and that's when the game was kind of over at that point, because the Royals, they did a lot what they could, but that 8th inning, that 3-run triple that Kwan hit, and Stephen Kwan, let's give credit to him. I believe himself, he's a rookie, and he came in and he just lit up the Royals. He got on base 15 times in 4 games. Like, that dude deserves a ton of credit. He played some fantastic baseball. Him and Oscar Mercado, like, those are the 2 guys that I found to be the 2 biggest nuisance in the final 2 games of this series. It's like those 2 guys were just lighting everything up. They were playing some great baseball. And after that 3-1 triple that Kwan hit, I'm like, all right, this game's kind of over. I stayed in that game. I didn't leave. I watched till the final pitch. And Benintendi hit that homer, got the score 10-7. I'm like, all right, the Royals have a chance. But at the end of the day, it wasn't meant to be, and the Royals ended up losing 10-7 in the final game of the series. It was a very fun game to attend. I enjoyed every single part of it, except for the umpires, because, I mean, I was tweeting out, this is an ump show, because I'm not huge to blame officials, umpires, referees, but I will blame the entire MLB as a whole, because the MLB is like a joke when it comes to their replay system. Like, they implement the replay system to get things right. They weren't able to even get 2 calls right, because there was one play where I think Nicky Lopez caused an error by the Guardians, and then there was a force play at second with Santana, and the Guardians threw it. Well, they originally, I believe, called him, I don't remember what the call exactly was, but after replay, they called him out. And I was like, it was clear as day, safe. And it wasn't just that. They called Witt out on a stolen base when from my seats I could clearly see that WITT was safe, and then Santana called out after replay when he was clearly safe. And in the 9th inning, I believe he was safe. In my opinion, that play was one of those plays where whatever you called on the field, you couldn't overturn it. If they would have called him out, I would have understood, but they called Santana safe in the 9th inning, and then so they overturned that. Don't know how they did that. So basically the replay system still doesn't work, and it's a system that I don't think is ever going to be perfect, because these umpires, I think these umpires have way too much pride in the calls that they try to make. Like, some of these calls were so frustrating. I was like, are you kidding me, man? Like, the Royals, they were fighting their tails off this entire game, especially game 4 of the series. They did everything to get back in, and it just, if I don't want to blame it, but I'm blaming the MLB and the replay system. It's a flawed system. It has a lot of work to go, and basically automated umpires, I feel like they are coming, and they are coming soon. Like, these guys aren't doing anything to help their case of them staying as, human umpires. It's going to be soon where those guys are gone. But that is my recap of the opening series between the Royals and the Guardians. Sorry I didn't sound particularly well in this voice. I was yelling at the game today. It was a ton of fun. I lost my voice at the game. I also don't feel particularly well. I kind of feel sick. So I went to the game sick and then decided to scream the entire game. I was yelling at the umpires like I was one of those guys. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, that's my recap of the Royals and Guardians opening series. Give me your thoughts down below of what you thought of the Royals and the Guardians series, and I'll see you in the next one.